Welcome to Dash Force News. I'm here with Scott Farnsworth, the Dash AeroSports, the Dash racer. Was busy taking the good word of Dash to the skies and on the ground. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing great today. Thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, no problem. It's always an interesting thing when we get into talking to different people in the cryptocurrency universe. It's always interesting to find out how everyone got started. What was that tumbling down the rabbit hole moment? And especially with Dash, there's a big diverse group of people that might be less technical than the ones in the other areas of cryptocurrency. So how did you first hear about cryptocurrency in general, and how did you first get started into it, and how did that end up segueing you into Dash?
Well, the digital currency aspect of it is actually just an add-on to my background in finance. I think I've shared the story before that ever since my typing teacher told me when I was 15 years old to not type he had the entire class not type that day, and he gave a lesson plan on compounding interest. After that, that drove me into, at an early age, into the stock market. And then later on, I did survive for a while as a options and futures trader, as well as an airline pilot at the time. Not a lot of people know that airline pilots in the beginning of their career are below poverty wages. They take our passion for flight, and they really leverage that against us to start out. Of course, the career grows into something great, but yeah. So when I was a co-pilot and very young, to supplement my income, I was trading futures and options. So I've always been in the financial industry and the financial markets, and then cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. That I've known about it, researched it. I wouldn't say there's the different levels of like the people that create it, and then directly after that, the early adopters. I did not get into Bitcoin at 25 cents. I did not send 10,000 Bitcoin for a pizza or anything like that. But Bitcoin has always been on my map. And then I started investing in Bitcoin. Of course, that went off to looking at the altcoins, and we talked about how, well, I was researching different altcoins, Darkcoin, and then later on Dash. And what really intrigued me about Dash was the conversion and very symbolic understanding of mass adoption. As we've talked about before, Dash's rebranding symbolized to me the understanding that this can affect every single person on the planet. We're not just talking about, smart contracts or banks converting, transmitting money around. We're talking about every single person that utilizes currency. It can be currency. And this, it goes so deep in my family. I've shared the story before that all three of my children are homeschooled, primarily for the basis of taking them off that revolving door of debt and learning and exposure to what other people want them to know. So when I was giving the lesson plan based on currencies in the mountains being seashells, currencies down by the beach, in ancient times were something that was rare. As long as it's rare, it can be currency. So when we were following the Bitcoin, and we went through the whole transition of that process from seashells all the way, and we finished at Bitcoin. Now it's time for me to do a new lesson plan on the new era digital currency, which is Dash. So
Yes.
that's how I got involved. And that's actually a little, that's the life of the Farnsworth family. Yeah, that's everybody in our family, from my kids all the way up to me.
So it seems like it was through just a general financial knowledge because of being in the financial sector, and then here comes this new financial tool on the radar, and then eventually look into it, and I'm going to get into this, and then you
Yeah.
just do your research down the path. It's just like being in the money, and then new money comes around, and you actually go do your research, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like, so if I'm researching my investments, it's what I love to do. I mean, when I'm not actively marketing for somebody, I'm managing my portfolios. And at one time, digital currency was that little 10% of your portfolio that might be competing for your capital, in the same sense of the company that has found a better way over optical wires to transmit, information across the planet. Maybe somebody came up with, who knows, pixie dust. But what I'm just saying is, you have those risky but possible high yield situations. So I was utilizing cryptocurrency in that little 10%. Well, to me, cryptocurrency, as you research, you just start to understand it, and you start to see what can happen. And like I said before, you always look for best in breed. You look for the one that's going to be the real home run. Your guys' show the other day, the Three Amigos, great show, by the way. Thanks, guys.
Oh, thank you.
You had talked about, sorry, I sipped my coffee for a second.
Yeah, little brain interrupt.
So,
get that.
You were talking,
oiled back up.
How I try and plan things out, and really, I'm just trying to find the best in breed. And when you look at the entire digital currency market system, obviously Dash fluctuating in the top 10, we were up in the top 5, fell back a little bit with this Bitcoin Cash. So I was looking for best in breed, and Bitcoin definitely has its issues. I mean, there's no way that you can do a transaction without seeing what happens with Bitcoin. And that's with such a small amount of people on the planet utilizing it. So then you keep going down the list of the top 10. I want the top 10. So I just keep going down the list. I'm like, well, smart contracts, I can kind of see where that's going. I really didn't understand it in the sense of how does this pertain to everybody on the planet? That's really what I'm looking for, right? Okay, so we go down, and then there's Ripple, and I don't agree. If you're investing in Ripple, that's fine. I don't agree with their stance and the purpose of that coin. So if it's even a coin. And then as you keep coming down, you come to Dash. And as I'm coming to Dash as an investor, and you'll see that as somebody that's buying a digital currency was the first primary. And then what I did and what I do in marketing found its way over here. So I started looking at this, and I'm like, well, these guys are basically, this is a payment system. This is a way for me to exchange your goods and services for something that I'm holding on my smartphone, my computer, and saying, you know what, I value what you're doing. I'm going to give you some Dash. And it's not just this sector, that sector. It applies to every single person on the planet. Now, on the marketing side of that is it gives me the ability to have at least the widest audience. And that to me is what keeps me awake at night and wakes me up in the morning and makes me work hard and keep going every day, is because I honestly believe that Scott Farnsworth, in the early days of Dash, I mean, it's all relative. The people that have been the development team all the way from Evan to Ryan Taylor, those are the true beginners, but it's all relative, because when Dash is 70 years old and I was in there in the first couple years, and I have a rippling effect of how Dash will benefit, that's what motivates me every single day, is that I can have a positive outcome for everybody that utilizes Dash. If you have 0.1 Dash and you're working at the swing shift at a 7-Eleven gas station, I can affect you in a beneficial way. I can affect how that rises up and it benefits you, not just with the currency value itself, but getting you to be able to utilize your Dash to go buy goods and service from another entity. Now, that's on the lower scale. Now, if you're a masternode and you have 100 votes, guess what? I'm going to benefit you greatly. Proportional, though. We're all going to benefit by my actions, not just my actions. I want to clarify that. It's not just me. It's a whole ecosystem. But I do see my purpose in the system, and I do see a benefit to what I'm doing. And anybody that can do something, wake up every day, and they're comfortable in life and they have a benefit and they can see that positive outcome, you're going to wake up with passion every single day and work for it. And I do a talk and I'm doing exactly what I preach to the kids when they come out and view our planes. I do a lot of outreach. We've posted some pictures on the Slack of us being invited to a different airline, and they have a youth outreach to aviation. And these kids, how much do you make? What do you do? How much is this? How do you race jets? How did you ever get into this, this, and this? And the number one thing that I always say is, don't worry about what it costs, guys. I can tell you right now, if you follow your passion, if you follow your passion, your fortune will always follow that. You just don't have to worry about it because it's a progressive thing. This is what I love to do. Therefore, I'm compensated for it. I make sure that I find out in my life how to accommodate racing jet airplanes at 500 feet, 500 miles an hour and 50 feet.
Yeah, so it seems like your passion has been for getting Dash into the hands of regular folks. I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of either cursory Dash fans or even casual Masternode owners probably viewed your proposal as a simple, let's slap a Dash logo on this plane and fly it around. But it seems like you've done a lot more than that and actually gone on the ground and convinced a lot of businesses to start accepting Dash. Was that kind of always part of the plan, or was that kind of something above and beyond?
If you look at our past sponsorships, that's what we do. And I actually, during the proposal, people were saying, how are we going to even see a logo on a plane when it's going by at 250, 500 miles an hour? And I tried to address that, but you guys have done the troll counter all the time, right? I can only answer so many times that's not what we do. We don't just, think about it. We don't just fly into an area, fly around for a little while, and then leave the area, right? We fly in on Thursday night, we stage Friday, we usually have a press, we invite the local press. When I say we, not just me, but the local air show invites the press for conversations, pilot interviews on Friday, and then we entertain as many people that we can get in, into the gates Saturday and Sunday. And yeah, I'm in the air for 12 to 15 minutes, but we're on the ground. If Jim, one of the Masternodes, came out to Oshkosh, and yeah, we flew in front of the crowd, and we taxied the plane nice and slow, and I waved at a sea of people with the Dash logos on the side and the dashforcenews.com, the QR codes, people walking up and taking the picture of the plane, which it's awesome. That QR code worked out great. Thank you. Yeah, we flew, but that was minutes, if not 30 minutes, 45 minutes on a busy day because we did multiple flights. The rest of the time, from my team was waking up at 5 o'clock. We were out of the RV by 6 a.m. and I was briefing the flights, because you have to brief when you're doing this type of stuff. When you're doing formation flights, everybody has to be on the same page. So I'm busy doing that. The other 3 team members that I utilize for market penetration, they're over in the vendors. And if Oshkosh has 4 huge buildings of vendors, and their entire job for the day is to go through. Now, the normal approach for us is really beneficial, where I have somebody that comes in, talks, knows how to present our product. And, you guys sit there and say, we've got a lot of adopters to Dash coming on board, but for every yes, we've asked 30 times. It's almost like when I was trying to get my,
to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's just like when I tried to get my wife to, go out on the first date with me. She's going to tell me no like 30 times. Eventually I'll wear her down, and hey, now we're married.
So, hey, you know what? I guess persistence does work. So what's your general strategy when approaching merchants and trying to get them on the Dash train?
Well, I knew that you were going to ask this question, and I had to think about this because we have a certain competitive advantage. So I can't discuss absolutely everything. I can give you the general rules of how we approach the situation and how we attract them. But the actual utilization and so forth, I have a lot of competitors in this market, and this will be going on YouTube. You have to keep in mind that one person actually said, we're actually going to pay this guy that puts vinyl on the side of airplanes. And, why are we doing this? You have to understand that I've had the highest ranking pilots on the planet as customers. So my proprietary knowledge of I've seen every single successful pilot's sponsorship proposals and packages and what companies expect and really what matters to them. I've seen every single pilot's proposal in front of me because I'm part of that budget system of wrapping the airplane. So I've been able to, after the last 5 years of doing that, see exactly what somebody in the business wants, what they need to quantify, and what they need in return on a return on investment. So there's certain things there that I've benefited from having another business that transfers into my marketing business. But so the exact numbers and how we justify putting somebody's logo on the plane and so forth like that, we'll keep that closed. But I'll talk about just who we are as a team. We're the team that walks in, number one, professional. Absolutely number one. You need to worry, and it sucks, but you need to worry about how you look to the general public. The master that came out, as soon as he walked up to the jet and he was talking to people about Dash, hey, you got to wear the blue shirt today. Tomorrow is the black shirt. We like to use, a dark gray pant or a dark gray shirt or shorts. So when somebody approaches a plane and there's a bunch of people, we're going to talk about spectators and we're going to talk about vendors, right? But it's basically the same thing. So if we all look like we're standing there and we're in different clothing or different outfits, we might all be looking like Dash, but we don't look like a team, right? So people come up, they look at the plane, they look around and okay, but they don't really know if you're working or not. And then they walk away. Now, when we have 5 people standing in black shirts on Monday with blue logos and with the same pants on, we're obviously there, we're a team, and we're approachable because that's our job. And so it creates an environment where people come to us and ask us questions. What is dash.org? Cool, here we go. Right, point of sale right there. Is, just like I said with the wife, engaging the conversation is 90% of the problem, right? Well, we've made ourselves attractive and approachable in the first place. So they can come to us and talk to us. Appearance is number one. Number two is if you work for me, you need to be a subject matter expert. I do not hire people that don't understand that if you don't know something in one conversation, first, somebody has a question, you don't know it, you need to go find out or research and bring that answer back to them. Two is that, again, that subject matter expert is retain that knowledge and continually learn that knowledge. Digital currency changes every day, right? An example is when I was working in vinyl, I'm an airline pilot, but I decided I wanted to develop a vinyl process to make lighter and faster airplanes. So I'm working with guys that have been in the business for 15, 16, 20 years. And I'm sitting there going, well, what's the UV exposure degradation of that material? And the guy's like, I don't know, like 2 years. I'm sitting there going, this is your job. You've been doing this for 20 years. You don't even know what that material is. I'm the guy that when I show up that, okay, based on this latitude on the planet and the sun exposure for 365 days a year, based on horizontal surface, that's a 4 to 7 year warranty on that, which means that it'll probably last for 7 years, but they give you a little space. So always become a subject matter expert, be able to answer the questions of the people, because as soon as you start stumbling, you become, now you're trying to sell something. If you're just talking to somebody or storylining the product, it's a whole different deal. But when you're trying to sell something, it changes the whole tone, the whole environment.
So that kind of like salesman in the negative connotation, that sort of salesman feel comes from when you have like a polished pitch, but it doesn't feel like you have sincere, deep knowledge on that.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. And you never want to have the polished pitch. It's not, I guess some people do. It's not my style. Everybody has walked by someplace, and an air show is a perfect example. I see it all the time. You walk by and the guy's like, hey, let me tell you about my product. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. You almost have to kind of like stand back with your cool jet or airplane, or just have that good environment in there and have the people approach you. Their guard's already down. When you approach somebody else, their guard goes up, right? And they're already kind of like, okay, what's this guy trying to sell me? But if they approach you, it's a whole different dynamic. And so I'd rather have, instead of doing the barker thing and bark at 10 people and get 6 people to listen to me, but really 1 out of that 6 are not really interested, or one of the 6 are interested. The other 5 are just tolerating the conversation until they can walk away. You change the whole dynamic. Now we have positive leads because the person has approached me. They've actually decided that they want to know about the product. At that point, I know that that person is actually somebody that's interested in it. They come in, we talk about it, and we can't. Another thing is, once you engage in that conversation, I don't care what's going on behind you. You have to engage that person, because not only is it rude, but they're a human being and they want to know about your product. You're compensated to be that outlet and that portal, to be the mouthpiece or the brand.
So let me just sort of throw an idea live at you right there. What if someone has some shirt that said, ask me about Dash Digital Cash?
Yeah.
That like sets up an opening already. Someone can say, oh, I mean, I've heard about crypto. I've heard this thing, or I haven't heard about it. I'm going to talk to this guy because he already said, basically, you can talk to me, but I won't need to jump at you.
Yeah, I like that. It's just a different. Actually, I do like that a lot. Now that you're saying it, I like that. Anyways, add that to the mental Rolodex. You know, in the air show environment, people are obsessed with airplanes. And that's, we were talking to the masternode, and he was discussing stuff with other people. And I, you know, right off the bat, Dash, I said, well, okay, let's redirect this. They're coming to talk about the airplane because they're at an air show. We bring them in, we talk about the airplane, we talk about what we do. Within about 35, 45 seconds of that conversation, yes, it's an L-39 advanced combat trainer, yada, yada, yada. But we utilize it as a jet air racer at 50 feet and 500 miles an hour. And we're supported by Dash. By the way, Dash is the fastest digital currency on the planet. If you've ever used PayPal or any other payment system, it's pretty much the same thing. We can get into some more specifics, you know, start talking about that. So you lead in what they're interested with, but you segue as fast as possible into your product.
Yeah. So when you're talking to trying to get an actual business to accept Dash as payment, how would you go about that? I mean, a lot of people don't even know where to start.
Okay, so I'm now switching from the spectator side of the air show business, where we're cute and cuddly and friendly, and here we are, and let's all talk about this. If we can have a campfire and a couple beers, we're going to sit around and talk about Dash, and our campfire and a couple beers will bring in more people, and you know, it feeds off, hey, what's going on over there? That's the spectator side. Now we switch over to the vendor side. On the vendor side, my guys go out and they start searching for different products, and you know, again, has to be top shelf. My Go Flight right here, it's an iPad mount, it's a GoPro mount, it's a 360 mount, it's machined aluminum, it's got absolute highest quality product. They're on the team, right? Everybody has seen the plastic stuff that will break from UV exposure within 6 months or something like that. I don't want to associate, and this is my own personal, you know, belief, and I'm sure anybody else that's involved with Dash believes the same thing. We want to associate our top shelf product, because we are top tier in the digital currency market, with other top tier products. So we have to protect the brand image of that. So we go out and we find the top tier products, and we start engaging and discussing. And my guys, depending on, it leads into, as we walk into the environment, body language, receptiveness, their background, who they are. There's no hard and fast answer. They go in, they talk to the individual. Now, as the owner of the company and also the race pilot, eventually I need to be brought in. Okay, so somebody's come to you. We've asked 50 vendors about their sales and their point of sale system and what kind of sales system they use, and would they be interested in utilizing a sales product point of sale system that they keep more money. That's usually
that's kind of the progression. Then you just talk to them, hey, how's it going, talk to them about their product and stuff. Then you say, like, what kind of point of sale system to use, and then they get into that, and then you say, well, would you want to talk about this other one that you could then save a lot more of your money on?
A business owner of any sense, a business manager of any level will understand the words, would you like your company to make more money? It's just, let's keep it absolutely simple. Until we have to engage the conversation on the absolute caveman level, guys like me, absolute caveman level. And then from there, as we develop the conversation, you have to see if the interest on the caveman levels there. Hey, do you want to save money? And by the way, you can send this, you know, you have vendors in China. If they accept Dash, you can transmit this to China, and you won't be, you know, you won't have any costs as far as the money transfer system. We're actually talking to somebody specifically exactly about what I just discussed, as a China to US transfer of funds on a regular basis. So it's, as soon as you start talking to people, they go, well, a wire transfer is only $45 and this is only $100, and they're a pretty big company. I go, well, how many times do you do that? Well, we only do that about 3 times a week.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. I go, so what you're saying is, if I just call you up and I do this for you, you'll just give me the $1,800 that you're throwing away? Well, no. Okay, so why are you just throwing away $1,800 a year? If everybody loves small fees on a reoccurring basis, because nobody's brain puts it together on a yearly basis. So I always bring their fees out into a yearly balance sheet. And yeah.
It's interesting because a local coffee shop I go to, about a month or so ago, they announced that they were raising their prices across the board by 5 cents. Mm-hmm. And it seems like, wow, why do you need 5 cents? But it's like, yeah, 5 plus 5 plus 5, it just all adds up. And by the end of it, then you can actually afford an extra shift. And you could not before then. You kind of have to do that. And those little margins really make sense. So if an average credit card transaction is, what, 2.7% if you use Square, the Square point of sale system, you can get that under that. Whew, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and as a small business owner who developed his own product, Aircraft Wraps, and went from literally doing stuff in my garage, to having several hangars and people working under me, that 3.5% swipe, every time I swipe that card, I was like, why am I paying on average $350 to $360 per swipe for my customers? Why am I paying that just to transfer money from him to me? So I know how I can be empathetic and know how the small business owner, what he's dealing with, because I've been there. Now, we were talking about the vendor and approaching them too. So we've talked about how to address them and put it into a quantitative example of a yearly savings by doing this. 2 is, in my business, and I can only talk about my business, is I deal with a lot of individuals that are phenomenal pilots. They're absolutely amazing pilots. And when they approach a sponsor, they get the, I'm really cool. I've got a really cool airplane. Give me money. Okay. On the aircraft, Dash AeroSports, previously Aircraft Wraps AeroSports, right? On the Dash AeroSports, we're representing Dash. We're not representing Aircraft Wraps anymore. It's not even on the plane. So we are Dash AeroSports 100%. We've been under contract for 2 months and 2 days. Of course, we started working 3 weeks before we ever got funded, so that we had we had deliverables on day one of our contract. When instead of doing I do cool things with airplanes, give me money because I'm cool. Instead, one of my team members has already come in, discussed our product and what we're doing. Now, it's not our product, but it's something that we believe in. And this is why. And this is why it's going to help you. And by the way, we're not going to make a cent off of this. Why are we wasting our time even talking about this? Obviously, we believe in the product. So my team
PS, we're good. And PS, we're really good pilots too.
Yeah, we do really. I mean, come on. They've seen our videos by that point, so they see what we do. So my individual has come in, talked to you, right? Looks professional, addresses you professionally, knows how to talk about the product as far as a business standpoint, what we're looking for you to save you money, and how that justifies you getting involved with us. Now, I'm over there by the jet taking care of spectators, but at 4:30, when the air show shuts down, the spectators start heading for the exit gate. The vendors are still there and they're cleaning up their product. At that point, I go straight from the jet straight into the vendors. And at that point, you've now been probably approached by several pilots that say, I'm cool, I got a cool plane, give me money, right? Instead, when Dash AeroSports walks in, you've already talked to one of my individuals that hopefully has impressed you. And as we walk in 5 bodies strong, all looking exactly the same as Dash AeroSports. So you know exactly how my team's going to represent your product. That's the number one thing, is as I walk in to that relationship anywhere, you know right off the bat exactly how your team's going to be represented. And everything from there is the conversation that we have with, with the owner. Now, if we don't have the owner, this might sound a little rough, but everybody in a building can say no. You have to find the person that can say yes. Now, the number one thing is, so if we want to get involved with you and you want to get involved with us, are you able to say yes? The question normally comes back is, what do you mean by that? Well, everybody in this building can say no to me. There's very few people in this building that can actually say yes. Now, are you the person that can say yes to this, or should we go ahead and get them involved in the conversation? Now, the reason why I'm doing that,
it's almost like storming the castle. You have to get through the guards first, jump over the boat, get past the big falling stone and the boiling oil, and then you finally get to the king where you can just say, hey, can I have an audience, please?
Well, and so the psychological fact, we've talked off camera about this, is I really pay attention to the psychology of marketing. As soon as I said, do you have the ability to say yes? Somebody that doesn't have the ability to say yes has now been challenged to provide you with a yes. They're sitting there going, yeah, he's right. I should be able to say yes to this. So you just put somebody else on your team. He's going to prove to you that he has the ability to say yes. Two is, if he really does have the ability to say yes and he's the one that sends the checks, well, he's going to prove to you that he can say yes, and he's the man or woman by saying yes. It's just a tactic. It works. I mean, it puts the ownership of the situation into, I wouldn't say the opponent, but the other side of the negotiations.
Interesting. So let's go to a hypothetical, right? Just a hypothetical. You go some local cafe or something, you go there all the time. You just love to be able to pay in Dash there. And what's the step-by-step then? And including how to even like reach the owner at that point.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll provide a video to you yesterday, a very candid video of how I do it. And I start from the person that you start interacting with. The waitress is there and she's talking to you. I'm usually in something Dash by this point, and that gets integrated into the conversation. Then you propose to them, for instance, if it's the cafe, if you tell the waitresses, hey, let's add on to your tip, everybody, if you come there a lot, if the different waitresses put a Dash Core wallet on their phones, well, okay, I owe you 15, 20% for the tip, but let me add another 10% on top of that to your Dash Core wallet on top of that. So now you have all the waitresses in the entire area or in that cafe that now are walking around with a Dash Core wallet. You've actually just became the guy that brought in 7 or 8 more people, and the ones that are off shift are going to hear about this. They're going to put Dash Core wallet on it because they're not going to turn down an additional tip because they don't have something on their smartphone, right? Mm-hmm. So as the waitresses become integrated, and nothing's a one-stop shop. As we get the waitresses on it, the manager sits there and goes, what are you guys doing? It's a continual storyline, a continual relationship that goes on. Manager, understands what's going on, knows about the product. You've been there. You're a good guy. You've over-tipped his waitresses. Now you sit there and say, hey, how do we get you to accept Dash? At that point, now the manager, if he can make the decision, he'll make the decision. And if he says no, you revisit it 2 or 3 weeks later. It's a persistence thing. If he doesn't, maybe he'll make the phone call to the owner and say, hey, this guy that's in here, he's involved. You've probably heard about digital currency. He's been tipping the waitresses in Dash. They seem very happy with it. He was asking if we'd be interested in taking Dash as a payment system. There it is. Now you have a restaurant already transferred over, because I can guarantee you those waitresses are not going to give up additional funds and a tip. And it all started with just, here, let me tip you a little bit extra.
Yeah, step-by-step game plan for cold call, so to speak. And it's not that cold at all by the end of it, right? That's kind of, if I'm understanding it right, that's sort of the secret, that even cold call situations end up being just, you have to start a relationship to get that to work. Is that right?
Yeah, you had a great point with the restaurant and the waitresses. So now you need to leverage that relationship with one other entity, right? So we started with just the local coffee shop, but that also gives us enough data and information to go into a Subway franchise owner and say, how many Subway franchises do you have? Oh, I have 10. Okay. So we've gone from a coffee shop. Well, how do we do this? And based on your knowledge and experience from the individual's coffee shop, we convert that into a larger exposure of the Subway franchise. Subway, 10 subways. Well, he goes to a franchise meeting and says, yeah, we've been accepting this Dash. You start with the seed, just like mining. You start with the seed and it grows. So that's what I'm trying to do with the vendor adoption. My Go Flight, they're in the aviation industry. They're in the bicycle mount industry. But now when I go to, I'm just going to throw this out there. Now, when I go to Garmin and they say, yeah, we'd like to sponsor the avionics package on your airplane, I say, well, that would be awesome. I love Garmin products. Part of our position as Dash AeroSports is that we need to integrate you into the, you need to integrate Dash into the payment system. Okay. How do we do that? Well, based on our experience with Method 7 and my Go Flight, this is how you do it. So we take small little seeds, we gain access, knowledge, and experience, and then we leverage that access, knowledge, and experience from the smaller entity to the larger entity. But when you go to the larger entity, never forget what you learned from the smaller entity.
Very interesting. So to take it to a where to go from here sort of level, what do you think is, what have you seen as a mistake or a deficiency in the Dash community in general, as far as getting new users and merchants on board? And then what do you think, how do you think that could be rectified?
Man, you have to give me those questions, right? Like
the hard ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Only for the experts.
I mean, this is like a job interview with, they're like, so what's your downfall? Oh, great. I get to tell you exactly what's wrong with me, right?
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I'm thinking a beach with a Corona and staring off into space, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I've tried to retire, to be honest with you. I for 2 years of my life, I spearfished for 2 or 3 days a week. It's not my personality. I like to build things. I like to build products and brands. It's basically, my life is like living Monopoly every day. Build, add. So
yeah. So tell us how you think we as a community can do a lot better at getting more people on Dash.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. Here we go. So as far as a product goes, it would be really hard to see Dash do a better job. And I'm not saying that just because I'm Mr. Hype boy. When you look at the essential of what it takes to be a digital currency, Dash's development team, the second tier system, the speed, the ease of use, I mean, it is literally the best product on the market. So we need to stay there. Okay. So the continued having the development team out in Hong Kong, or the development labs looking at, far reaching future plans, that's a great way to stay where you're at and keep growing. Community wise, you said community.
Yes. Like, how could the Dash community do a better job of getting more users and merchants on board?
Yeah. And that's, so if somebody comes into the community and they're enthusiastic about it, I'm going to use an example. My first airline, not my first airline, the major airline that I worked for, the airline had only been there for 3 years. And in the airline business, that's nothing. But as I showed up as a co-pilot, somebody would say to me, you have no experience of what this company is all about. I've been here since the beginning. And I'm like, yeah, that was like 3 years ago. I mean, I can almost stand on my head for a year. You know what I'm saying? So it's all relative. Right now, I'm a new face to this community. I've been involved. I've been buying Dash. I've been in digital currency, but I'm a new face in this community. But believe it or not, I have people reaching out to me on several times a day that are interested in the product and want to know about the product. Now, if that person called me up and they were like, well, what's this? What's a node? What is a blockchain? What is a blockchain? That question comes up. What's a ledger? And if I just sat there and laughed at them and go, you're such a noob, you know what? Just discarded them as somebody that isn't knowledgeable. If we want to be mass adoption and apply to everybody, what you and I have a knowledge of, other people don't have to know that. they just have to, utilize the product and understand that it's benefiting them. At that point, we're successful. As the people that are in the community have been in the community for a long time, 3 years, or digital currency for that matter.
Literally just 3 years of Dash, basically.
Exactly. So there's this whole, like, I've been here since the doors open thing. And that is not an inclusive relationship. When somebody comes on Slack or onto the forums and they have questions and you've answered that question 50,000 times and you're just like, you need to be receptive to that person as a human being, as somebody, the relationship is relative on either side of the conversation. You think you've had that conversation 50,000 times. This person's coming to you on their side of the relationship. They just discovered this new thing called digital currency, and they were searching around and, hey, look, this Dash is amazing. I have questions. And then they come into the conversation on their side. They just got there. So before we, have this elitist, I've been in digital currency for X amount of time and you're just getting here, we need to be an inclusive environment. And I think Dash Slack is a great example. I wake up every day and I've got these direct messages about, hey, you're doing awesome, keep it up. I'm the type of personality that I'm going to march no matter what, but talk about the motivation of having just that human interaction on a daily basis, multiple interactions on a daily basis from the Dash community. I think about my situation, and I wake up every day, not just because I want to promote Dash, but everybody that's sending me these direct messages, I want to make them proud of what we're doing out there. So that's the community side, is the whole interpersonal relationship. Be more inclusive. Don't sit there and, somebody's new to it. We don't use the words noob. We don't, use the different slang for making fun of people that are new to it. Bring them in, teach them, tell them. And guess what? When you bring them in, teach them and tell them, well, they're going to go out and they're going to talk about it. And you never know who's going to show up at your front door. You might have some crazy guy that flies airplanes like a madman, puts it all over the plane and starts doing media interviews.
Hey, I recognize that hypothetical story.
Yeah, exactly. So,
all right, that's a bunch of wisdom that I'm sure we'll spend plenty of time, many years living up to. Thanks again for all you do for Dash, and thanks very much for talking to me on this bright and beautiful Sunday morning.
It was a pleasure. I just want to give a really big shout out to everybody on Dash Force News. I really appreciate what you're doing for Dash. The continual content is amazing. I love the structure that you guys have. Like we've talked about, we get busy. I see some kind of feed come in from Dash Force News. I can read it quickly, see what's going on. It's amazing. I love having you guys on the jet. As we've talked about, I've actually taken AeroSports.com off of all of our leads. Every one of our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook posts will now lead to Dash Force News. I appreciate the content that you guys have, and I look forward to working with your organization and integrating as much as possible. And hopefully you guys come out and do some VIP rides.
Well, thanks very much, and we'll do our best not to disappoint.
I'm sure you won't. You guys are phenomenal. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again. Have a good one.
You too.